Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to try and unpack a single word that's a place on a map, a divine promise, and a modern political firestorm all at once. Zion. How on earth can one word mean so many different things to so many different people? Well, we're going to break it down using the sources to guide us.
All right, so what is Zion? The thing is, there's no easy answer. Ask a historian, and it's a hill in Jerusalem. Ask a believer, and it's a spiritual kingdom. Ask a political activist, and it's the very foundation of a nation-state. You see, the meaning completely shifts depending on who you're talking to.
So, to get our heads around all this, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the ancient Jewish connection to the land. Then, we'll track how that spiritual idea became a full-blown political movement. And finally, we'll look at how Christianity and Islam fit into this picture, because they have their own powerful takes on what it all means. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Why does this one single concept carry so much incredible weight across centuries and for so many different cultures?
It's this wild mix, It's like ancient history, religious prophecy, and modern politics are all tangled up together. And that right there is why any conversation about Zion gets so layered and, frankly, so heated. You just can't pull those threads apart.
To really get what's happening now, we have to rewind way, way back. Because the Jewish connection to this land isn't some recent thing. Nope, we're talking about a story that goes back thousands of years, rooted in scripture and some major historical moments.
You can see this powerful cycle, right? A period of having a kingdom, then conquest, then exile, but always this powerful hope of return. From the legendary kingdom of King David, through the destruction of not one, but two temples, all of these events forge this deep, deep connection to the idea of a homeland.
So you might be wondering, how did this identity even survive for centuries with people scattered all over the globe? Well, it came down to these core pillars. Even when the physical temple was gone, the Torah was there as a guide. The synagogue emerged as a new center for the community, and all of this kept that memory, that hope alive through the diaspora.
All right, let's fast forward. We're jumping into the modern era, because this is where that ancient spiritual hope starts to morph into something else, something organized and something intensely political. And here is the absolute key takeaway. Zionism took this religious and cultural idea, this deep longing for Zion that had been around for centuries, and turned it into a concrete political project, create a nation-state. But we have to be really clear here, because there are two very different streams of thought. On one hand, you have restorationism. This is mainly a religious belief that returning to the land is a divine promise. Then you have political Zionism. This was a secular movement, born from the brutal reality of anti-Semitism in Europe, which basically argued that a Jewish state was a practical necessity for survival. But here's where the story gets even more complicated. The push for a Jewish state didn't just come from within Judaism. It actually found an incredibly powerful ally in a specific branch of Christian theology, and this was happening even before the political movement really kicked into high gear. For Christian Zionists, the creation of modern Israel in 1948 wasn't just another political event. To them, it was literally the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. It was like watching the pages of the Bible come to life in real time.
Now that idea is in a head-to-head conflict with another major Christian view called supersessionism, or sometimes replacement theology. And you really have to understand this clash to get why Christians are so divided on this issue.
This gets right to the heart of a massive theological divide. Is the Christian church the new Israel, replacing the old one? Or are God's original promises to the Jewish people still active and unfolding? How a Christian answers that one question pretty much determines their entire view of the modern state of Israel. And just like with Christianity, it's a huge mistake to think there's only one monolithic Islamic view here. When you actually dig into the sources, you find a whole spectrum of different interpretations, all coming from different readings of scripture and history. For instance, some Islamic scholars, like Sheikh Palazzi, point directly to verses in the Quran just like this one. They interpret them to mean that the Israelites' right to the land isn't just a political claim, but something that was actually ordained by God. But then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you find sources that frame Zionism as a modern colonial project. This perspective sees the history as one of political deals and collusion that ultimately led to the oppression of the Palestinian people.
And beyond the politics, there are other voices too. You have groups like the Israeli Sufi way that are trying to find common ground through spiritual dialogue. They're trying to reconnect with a shared Jewish and Muslim heritage that they feel has been buried by the conflict.
So all these complex historical and religious claims, they're not just relics of the past. Not at all. They are actively shaping identity, communities, and conflict right now, today. And this is absolutely vital to understand. There is no single Jewish viewpoint on Israel. Within the global Jewish community, this is a live, passionate, and constantly evolving debate. Assuming everyone thinks the same way completely erases that incredible diversity of thought.
And this is where you can really feel the past echoing in the present. A majority of American Jews today say they feel less safe because of rising anti-Semitism. That anxiety, that fear for their safety, it's the exact same concern that fueled the arguments of the early political Zionists over a century ago. So the bottom line is this. This conflict isn't just about territory. It's a deep-seated clash of foundational stories, where history, prophecy, and identity are all mapped onto the very same small piece of land.
So Zion is and remains a land of many meanings, and understanding these different, competing claims, these powerful stories of history, prophecy, and identity is the essential first step. It's not going to give you an easy answer, but it helps us ask the right questions about why this one small place continues to shape our entire world.